I'm gonna talk.
Wow!
Start trading today at pucatrade.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Vintage Super League. Luis Scott Burgess here with Chris Pacula, and man, that was a match.
Yeah, I mean that was cool. I mean, I found myself rooting for Tom, which is weird because I'm playing Storm, and
And because it's
I don't
because
know.
you're well known, and because of your well known rooting allegiances.
Right, but I was really rooting for Tom that match. I don't know why. It's funny because somehow it's also funny to watch Kai lose. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Well,
it's just
if you find that funny, this has been a hilarious season.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the great thing about VSL is just Kai loses all the time.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it great, but it has been funny that like a lot of the people who won the games in this season so far were huge underdogs in the games. Like I think Kai was very low percentage to win both games 1 and 3, and somehow he pulled them out. Though Tom was a really low percentage to win game 3 at one point, and then it just like switched all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty insane game. I got to admit I would have necroed for 3 down to 1 and just hoped to win the mana crit flips, but Kai's plan was probably better. I mean,
Yeah, but
just
he had
looking
what
at
he
it.
needed in his hand. I mean, I guess because he does have a lot of duresses, and I don't know. I didn't look at his list, but he does have a lot of duresses in Cabal Therapy. So
Yeah. So it is pretty close there. I mean, the problem is, if Tom draws a blue card, you then have to start necroing, and the more turns you take, the more mana crit flips you're giving yourself.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was interesting that Tom boarded in Kataki, and it still would have won in the game there still.
oh yeah, it was absurd. It was absurd game 2 and would have been great game 3.
Yeah, just turning off Academy is so important.
Yeah. Speaking of Kataki, what happened in game 2 when all the moxes went away for both players?
I don't know. I mean, Kai is known in VSL for not reading Kataki. He played 2 at once against me.
Yeah, he did do that. It was so funny because he like lets both his moxes die. I'm like, that's weird, but probably doesn't matter. Then he draws Academy.
Right.
It was like, all right.
Yeah,
well,
I don't know
there
what
we
happened.
go.
Right? They didn't say anything in the chat. There was no talk of misclicks.
So, Kai apparently said he thought Tom was brainstorm locked. He forgot that
Shuffle.
he forgot that Tom had played a fetch line post brainstorm. So Tom wanted his in the graveyard for Delve, which again was being said in the chat here. That makes sense. Tom doesn't really have he doesn't have Academy or anything like that. So
Right.
So that was pretty interesting. Our next match is going to be, well, very similar in that we've got a Storm player on one side. That's actually David Ochoa, who put down the workshops for the first time, playing against Rich Shay, who picked them up, I don't know, a year ago, somewhere in the last season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's somewhat of a preview of our match later.
Yeah, I would say so.
Your deck's a little funky.
I don't know what your plan is to deal with Spine of Ishsaw, but it's coming.
I was looking at the ensnaring bridges, thinking, what am I going to do?
Yeah, those are great too. Basically, look, those slots are the slots that tend to be for like the mirror anyway. So
I said the same thing in commentary last week. Those are not taking up slots that would have been good against Storm anyway. I totally agree.
No, I mean, Shay's deck's a little better because I would rather draw Arcbound Ravager or Hangerback Walker than Ensnaring Bridge against you, right? Like, by a decent amount. But it's not, those aren't like the game changers.
Right.
If I'm at the point where I'm racing you with Ravager, I'm probably dead. So I don't think that impacts our matchup too much. But yeah, well, I suspect most of those won't be in the deck after game 1. So.
Right. Now, the difference between these matches is not only the slight difference in deck lists, but also their exceptional records.
Yes, we're playing to see who the leader of the pack is here, since the winner of the match will be 5-1 now. So looks like the players are ready. So let's just head on down. Alrighty, welcome to our number 1 seed matchup, and who's on the play here? Looks like Rich Shay is on the play and has, well, a turn 1 sphere. Actually, a turn 2 nothing, which is funny. I mean, I think this hand's very keepable against Storm on the play. But Ancient Tomb Sphere of Resistance means that unless Rich draws a 2-mana land or a 3-mana land, his turn 2 is like playing Umezawa's Jitte or maybe using Wasteland.
Yeah, the unfortunate reality is that that might be good enough. The do nothing turn 2 may not matter.
This David Mulligan a slow hand into a very good 6.
So
And as Ifra was pointing out, he did all the math on die rolls. Rich Shay's up to a winning die rolls at 85% clip or something. Yeah, as we discussed before, Max, that's a very good strategy in this format.
Oh, absolutely. When I play shops, I definitely would rather roll well than play well. Like my play is only going to happen in a very narrow range. The coin flip is high variance.
Yeah. So David likely going to crack Polluted Delta for basic here and probably just play the Lotus. I don't think you need to cast Gataxian Probe. The downside of that is Phyrexian Revoker.
That is true. The Revokers, I could see him probing once just to fear because of fear of Revoker. That makes sense. We've seen people get punished for not doing that, but he's going to gamble.
Yeah, he did play a Lotus, and Rich drew a land, but it wasn't a 2-mana land, so it's going to be hard for David to go off from this position, but he doesn't have that much time. I guess he could just draw Hurkyl's Recall. He's not under a ton of pressure yet, especially if Rich. I guess Rich's next turn is probably just a second Sphere of Resistance with the Metamorph. That seems a little better than Trinisphere. I don't know.
I think that's better. He only has one basic main deck.
Yeah, I believe so. Taking a look, using our handy bot to get our deck lists, and David Ochoa has one basic main deck, so he's exposing himself to Wasteland. The thing that he doesn't know is that Rich Wastelanding doesn't actually, it hurts Rich. Well, it would have hurt Rich if he didn't draw Thorn, because now Rich can go Thorn Wasteland, but I think David's not that unhappy with how these things are going, in the sense that he's not getting pressured.
Yeah, Mishra's Workshop is what he's afraid of now, because that'll let him cast Lodestone.
Right, Lodestone Golem being, of course, the card that does it all. Because David can now go Gataxian Probe. If David, he needs to draw Hurkyl's to win this game, and some sort of draw 7 or tutor along with it. But he might have a couple more draw steps plus the probes. That's not an unreasonable place to be.
Yeah, this definitely could be one of the games that plays out very simplistically. They both kind of do this stuff, and then Hurkyl's resolves, and none of it mattered.
Yeah, the threat of Hurkyl's Recall is definitely a real one here. And David has a main deck Chain and a main deck Hurkyl. So here's a part where he wishes he had 2 Chain of Vapors in the main deck. Or, sorry, 2 Hurkyl's Recalls, because Chain of Vapor is not going to get it done.
Oh, he only has 1 Hurkyl's.
He's got 1 Hurkyl's, yeah.
Oh.
Dark Ritual not at its finest right now. So Rich's options are really just play Hangerback Walker for 1, which, along with the GT, at least can start to attack, but that's not super fast.
No, Gataxian Probes will continue to do 2 per turn.
Yeah.
Although maybe next turn there is no reason to pay life for it. You just pay your...
Yeah, you're not really casting a second spell.
Yeah.
This is where Rich not having Null Rod does hurt him a little bit. Not to brag, but I've got Null Rod in my deck, and
I know.
It is pretty good against Storm. Duress, I'm really not that attracted to casting Duress right now. The thing is, what could Rich have in his hand that he couldn't cast? And one of the big answers is Lodestone Golem.
Yeah, he would have to have... I guess he could have Tangle Wire. Tangle Wire tapping your Mana Vault could be pretty annoying.
That's true. Tangle Wire would be annoying, but Rich is 2 mana away from casting Tangle Wire and hasn't played a land in a couple turns, or at least hasn't played a land this last turn. So, David deciding whether he wants to Delta and Probe by paying 1 mana or just pay the life.
I think you just pay the mana, right?
Yeah.
Because you already have a Wastelandable land in play, and you can't cast a second spell.
You could if you wanted to sack Lotus or tap Mana Vault, which you're just not that likely to do, though. I know. I guess David actually already even knows Rich's hand, doesn't he? Because of the previous probe. So casting duress there is even less appealing.
Oh,
That was big.
that's brutal. Yeah.
Though I don't actually know how much that changes things.
He can still cast Hercule, so.
Right. Webb can still cast Hercule's Recall and still has a couple draw steps toward it. He has been drawing poorly, basically bricking on the duress. The Dark Ritual means that he's more likely to win if he draws a tutor, assuming he can find a Hercules at some point, but defense grid, not really what he's looking for.
Combos with Tolarian Academy, and that's the extent of it. In fact, it's a bad he should not play it.
Yeah.
Because that messes up your EOT Hercules. If he somehow messed up and played it just in case he draws Academy, that would be... I mean, it also taps for Tanglewire.
That's true.
But I don't think it's worth it.
Trinisphere down, Mox that costs 2 to cast.
Well, one good thing, he can win this game with a mini Tendrils.
Wow, that's true. So let's say David just draws Tendrils right now. He has 4, 7 mana. Ritual breaks even, and he can't play Duress and Tendrils, unfortunately.
No.
So yeah, he can't win with just a Tendrils right now, but Taxian Probe. So next turn, Rich is threatening 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you pay the life on Probe, you actually die next turn to Rich's beats. So yeah, David's going to need to draw Hercules plus Tutor or Hercules plus Draw 7. Basically, with this probe and his draw step, and he has to hope Rich doesn't draw a land.
Would Webb have lost this game even with no spheres in play?
Yes, he would have. He hasn't come close to doing anything. And actually, even though Lodestone come out here is not actually that relevant if the Webb drew Hercules Tutor. But yeah, Webb would have lost this game to Rich. Not like those spheres were worse for Rich. They didn't do anything.
Yeah. He would have lost this game to like a modern like black-white tokens deck, I think. He just does. He hasn't drawn a single business spell.
Oh yeah, not even close. Let's see. So if Rich taps the Ancient Tomb again,
now he can die to Tendrils, though, right?
What? No, because he'll have GT counters.
Oh, GT counters.
And because you can just make another Revoker and name Mana Vault and make it that much more difficult for Webb to cast anything. All right, so I think David is pretty much dead here.
Yeah. The second I wasn't even looking at the second Revoker.
Yeah, he bricked a few too many times, unfortunately.
Yeah. You actually can't afford to go an entire game where you don't draw any business spells.
True. Webb's drawn 3 probes, 2 duresses, a defense grid, and all mana. Which doesn't actually do anything. You're right. It just spins its wheels. Rich probably doesn't even want to use GT here. I think you just keep all the counters on it just to protect from some weird Tendrils kill. Not that that's happening really,
right.
but...
Yeah, there's nothing he can draw, right? I mean, he could draw Hercules, but there's nothing... He would have to be holding something else.
He can't even... I guess he can cast Hercules exactly.
Right.
It is... Yeah.
So from Rich's point of view, he could still cast Hercules Recall.
Yeah. David draws and might sack the Delta first.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Kind of a moot point here.
Although, wouldn't you rather be able to say you lost because you didn't draw any business spells, so you should actually leave it in your deck?
That's true. And Webb, in fact, would have lost to basically anything here.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Rich did win the die roll, which is a pretty good predictor of who's going to win in this matchup. But as it turns out, David wouldn't have been able to assemble a win against any deck in Magic. So.
Yeah, it just didn't do anything. So what do we got here? Got a bunch of Hercules Recalls.
Yeah, Rich. I mean, Webb does get to side in 2 more Hercules and Ancient Tomb, 3 Ancient Tombs, and Empty the Warren and 2 basics. So he's siding in something like 8 cards.
Yeah,
or 9 cards. He has a rebuild also.
Rich sided so quickly I forgot what he has. Oh, he has the Mind Break.
Rich just has 3 mind break traps, and
Are you
if he
bringing the
wants,
cages?
he could either bring Cage or Relic. I kind of like Relic more because that actually stops Dark Petition.
Oh, yeah.
Cage does stop Yawgmoth's Will, but you still get the 3 black off Dark Petition. If you can leave Relic up, then you can do that. And Rich has a bunch of cards that he can't want in this matchup, like Sword of Fire and Ice, GTA, Crucible of Worlds, I guess, and Hangerback Walker. Those are probably the ones I'd be looking at taking out.
Yeah, I think he probably brings in at least 1 cage. 2 cages doesn't do anything, but
Yeah, I like Relic more, but yes, you could. He might be fine cutting like other creatures like Triskelion, for example. Maybe he doesn't need all of them. Like a lot of the strength of Triskelion is
I actually like Triskelion just because it's a lot of damage from 1 card.
true. I guess it stops a mini warrens, right? Like if Web warrened for like 8, you could just play a turn 2 trike, and that might do a decent job.
Yeah. The hangerbacks are really bad.
So
The equipment's bad.
David's in the interesting spot. When you're on the play, do you like Duresses in Storm against the workshop decks?
I do, I think. I think they're good on the play.
I mean, I know we're playing this exact matchup, but it's not like I have any decisions. So,
Right.
oh, what does Webb have? A Toxic Deluge? Is that what that card is? He does. Webb also has Toxic Deluge. I guess that kills Lodestone Golems and Revokers, but it's pretty hard to cast, especially tapping Ancient Tomb to cast Toxic Deluge is not really my idea of a good time.
Well, he boards out Necropotence, I'm pretty sure, right?
I don't know.
No, he's boarding out Bargain.
Necro is better than Bargain, I think, because you can just play it turn 1 and then try to assemble a turn 3 kill, whereas Bargain's really hard to cast.
I just find that sometimes it's tough to reliably necro because they always get a turn. Like especially if you do an early necro and then they add 2 pieces of the board, now you can't cast your spells and you're like, where Bargain at least you can go off that turn. Is what it sounds.
You're kind of just hoping to necro into lands every turn. Though Ancient Tomb is kind of nice for that. So David, of course, on the play now. And this is a weird hand.
Both these draws, well, Rich is going to mulligan, I think.
Rich has turn 1 Revoker, turn 2 if he doesn't miss, do nothing. But if Rich draws a Mox, his hand is insane, right?
That's
turn
true.
1, turn 2 gold.
That is true. Maybe he keeps because he can just revoke everything.
I think Webb would hope Rich mulligans because Webb could go turn 1 Library, but that seems like such a soft play. I feel like turn 1 Badlands Soul Ring setting up, like you could maybe vamp or set up a turn 2 Hercules into vamp time.
I don't think
vamp time twister. Yeah,
you don't do Library Go against shops.
No, I don't think so. I kind of like turn 1 Badlands or Badlands Soul Ring, and then maybe you go turn 2 Hercules, or maybe you go with a vamp for a time twister. I mean, Webb's hand falls apart to a lot of combinations of cards. This is not a great hand by any stretch. You want to do a lot better when you're on the play, but I don't know that this is worth mulliganing.
So Rich did mulligan.
Okay, and Webb did keep.
Maybe Rich's hand is a keeper. I don't know. It's close. Probably not. I don't think Revoker's
the Scry gives you such a good reason to mulligan.
Yeah.
Just because it's so hard to it's. Especially in Vintage when I mean, this matchup is in no way about attrition, right? Like, they are not trading cards against each other. So, Rich's 6 plus a Scry is basically the same as a 7. It's very close to, like, in terms of what you get to do. On the play, that falls apart a little bit, but...
Yeah, the only attrition aspect of it is if you board it down to very few threats, do you risk a game where you just don't draw away to win early enough, and you give him just an insane amount of time to dig out of it. That's really only where being short cards can hurt.
Right. I was going to say Rich just plays Revoker, but he drew Lotus. He can also just play a Thorn as well, and might as well get that Relic out there too.
Oh man, yeah, this is pretty nasty.
So what does Webb then do? He can still just cast a turn 2 Ponder. Because he can just tap Academy and Badlands for it. Rich doesn't have another lock piece right now, so this is certainly not game. Webb can also play a Swamp and just cast Vampiric Tutor. This is the kind of position I hate, though, where if you like Vamp and then cast like a Time Twister or something against shops, but then you can't kill them, they just always get you so hard.
Oh yeah, I don't think you can do that. I think you need to find something better.
All right, so here comes Metamorph to copy Thorn. I assume Webb's going to Vamp in response. At this point, you might just Vamp for Ancestral. Like, that doesn't seem too bad to me. You got Hercules, so you just want to draw more blue sources.
Can you Vamp for... Vamping for Ancient Tomb probably doesn't make sense because you have 2 land in your hand.
The problem is Webb doesn't have a way to kill either. He just has a Ponder, so
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like just drawing 3. You're not taking tons of damage. Rich is 2 points off the Revoker and maybe off the Factory.
Yeah, I guess exposing your Academy...
Rich also only has one card in hand. I don't know.
No, that's true. I think you're... I'm trying to think if there's anything better. You're right, I agree. You can't... Ancestraling is better than you both drawing 7. There's no question about that. Unless you...
Ancestral's good.
Thing, you could get really greedy and go for Lotus so that you can cast your Lotus and tap your Academy. Oh no, but then you still can't Ponder. No, that's not worth it.
Yeah. Ancestral's great because post-board, the matchup's all about attrition.
Yeah, if there was some way to make the Academy... Ah, man, this is rough.
Well, I think that the Ancestral does help the Academy because right now you're vamping down to 18. You're going to hit down 16 off Revoker. You're assuming that Rich is just going to make another Thorn here because it seems kind of insane to make a Revoker without knowing what to name. And then
Agreed.
you Ancestral and hopefully draw like a Mox. Then the turn after you just go land, play a Mox, play a Ponder, that sort of thing.
I like the line.
Yeah. Setting up Hercules Time Twister is also nice eventually, but I think you're low enough on resources that you're not really looking to do that right now. If Rich really wants to get aggressive, he could just Revoker and just...
He did do Revoker.
Wow. Okay, well, if I'm Webb, I'm happy about that. He named Lotus. That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think it's a crazy play to name Lotus, but I'm still surprised he did it because it seems like unnecessarily risky.
Yeah, I don't get the upside is the thing. Like, it makes the clock a little faster, but it doesn't make it an insane amount faster. Oh, wow, Webb is not playing Ancestral right now? I guess he can just cast Hercules this turn, can't he? Rich cycling Relic. He can't cast Trike even if he draws a Workshop. Well, he drew another Trike. That's not great. Webb could also just Hercules end of turn here.
You could Hercules right now, but probably not.
Yeah, then Thorn gets recast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think naming Lotus there is not great. I don't know. I'm not in love with that play.
So he didn't do EOT Hercules.
Mm-mm. So presumably Webb...
He has 7 cards in his hand, so he still can't... You can Hercules duress the Thorn, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And then you can use the
problem with that is that then you do eventually have to deal with the Revoker, which is just presumably going to name Lotus again. Now you have Lotus. But Webb could just go like, pay 1 for Mox, play Academy Go, hope Rich doesn't have a Wasteland, you take damage again, and then you go end of turn Hercules, and then you have your draw step plus Ponder to find things, and you've got a decent amount, a little bit of time at least.
Right. So if you play Emerald here, you get to Ponder and potentially still Hercules on your turn if you draw something great, right?
Yeah.
But you also know that your Hercules is just good at the end of his turn. So
So Webb didn't play the Mox Emerald. I think trying to maybe consider a library.
I don't know if you can really.
Oh, this is going to work out great for Webb, I assume, because now Rich, because of the way mana has to float, Rich is going to activate Factory, and then Webb can Hercules now and not take any damage.
Oh, this is insane. What a risk.
Yeah,
I guess he takes 3 damage from the trike, but
you just snap off the Hercules now.
yeah. What do you think about exposing your academy with Pon? Oh, once you Hercules, you can Lotus. But if
Yeah.
he had just gone Wasteland, then you're forced to Hercules.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have it last turn. You just have to
Yeah.
give yourself another turn. So Webb has to draw a spell, but he's got He's got a ton of mana, right? He's got Academy with 3 artifacts, a Ritual, a Lotus, Soul Ring, all these cards. So all he needs to do is find a Dark Petition and he wins, or a Demonic Tutor.
Yep.
And it sounds like Webb boarded out Mind's Desire, so that's one, because it's hard to string together that card. So if you're gonna, I guess you just play the 2 artifacts and tap Academy. It's pretty hard to imagine getting to Library, right? Like you'd have to draw. You already used your Ancestral anyway, so
Wow.
you don't really need to. Oh, he's gonna Duress. Is he trying to figure out? I mean, I guess you take the Thorn. You know everything in Rich's hand except the last Triskelion. The funny thing about this is, even if Rich gets a turn, it's not like he just wins.
Right. That's why I said before, you can Hercules and take the. I mean, yeah, there's too many things to revoke her. Like you have too much mana now.
Yeah. So now you tap Academy presumably, and though I don't know about. I guess playing all the cards and then brainstorming doesn't matter too much, because you're just looking for one card that'll just win the game. Even a Tendrils will just win the game right now. There's a Dark Petition. I guess that's the game.
Oh yeah. Yep. Tendrils is good enough.
All right, of course he knows Rich has Mindbreak Trap in his deck, so Duressing first is playing around that.
Yeah, the Mindbreak traps definitely change things.
Yeah, they're annoying to have to worry about. Is this the part now where David just tried to figure out how many spells he's played? And
Is there a way to see that? Because
not you can look at a Storm card, but that's it. You can look at the game log and just count, which is also not the most thrilling, but. And there we go.
now Webb just needs to win the die roll for game 3.
Yep, that's it. If he does that, he's in great shape. Well, Storm's forced to game 3. It unfortunately won't next match, but it has in these last couple. Game 3 on the draw is still tough. Webb has outs though. I mean, there are combinations where Rich plays like a turn 1 Sphere, and Webb just empties for 10 on turn 1.
I mean, it's once you have all the Hercules recalls in the deck, it's not. And you have more basic lands. It's not a.
No, Storm can't win. Yeah, that's certainly true. You'd still rather be on the Workshop's side, but it's not an unwinnable matchup.
Yeah. I saw you saying earlier you really believe Loathsome Golem should be restricted?
I think that would improve Vintage. So look, here's where I'm coming from. I think Workshops is just the best deck by too much. I think it's just so good. It basically, except for Dredge, which it can sideboard against if it wants, has no bad matchups and a lot of really good ones. Even against Oath, it's just sometimes you just play a turn 1 Sphere or whatever.
I don't even think Shops is bad against Dredge.
Yeah, it might not be.
I think it's fine.
And then
I agree with you. I think that the combination of Shops being so good with the fact that there's 2 things. One, it's not fun for a deck to dominate where just nobody does anything. It's just not interesting. But the other problem that's obviously related to that is that a huge number of the games you lose, there's simply no card you could have had.
Right.
Even if you designed the top 7 cards of your deck, you may not be able to beat their opener.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. Another thing that's pushing shops so much right now is I think this Storm deck is the other best deck in Vintage, like the second best deck in Vintage. And for the blue decks, like Martel's deck, right, that he was just playing, for those decks to have a chance against Storm, they have to play all these cards that are terrible against shops. So you end up in this position where the blue decks have to contort themselves towards one or the other and still aren't even that great. And then Storm and Shops are just so good, and then Shops is good against Storm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was a card besides Lodestone Golem because you hate to restrict a creature, but
yeah, I think Lodestone is it's the combination of a sphere effect plus like a 3-turn clock essentially
yeah,
that makes it. Yeah. All right. Well, here we go.
you could just restrict Mishra's Workshop.
I don't think you should do that. I would rather start by restricting Lodestone Golem and seeing where that goes. I also think Dark Petition should be restricted just to kind of level the playing field. You know, some people are saying like, oh, then blue would be the best deck. I don't even think that's true. I don't think like the random blue decks would just be the best deck all of a sudden. And there's like 10 different ones.
Yeah, there's no such thing as what do they mean when they say blue would be the best deck? Like I don't know what blue deck they mean.
Yeah.
So
Rich clearly keeping this. I believe Webb kept his hand, even though it's certainly not thrilling. Rich doesn't have the most explosive hand. I mean, he does get to play turn 1 sphere, turn 2. I guess just turn 2, 1 more sphere. He can't play 2 more.
he's gonna play a sphere every turn.
Yeah.
That's pretty rough.
Double sphere would be tough, given how spheres work.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if Rich doesn't draw a Wasteland or another threat, then David might be able to get out of this with, oh, Island was a good draw, with like Island, Mox Ruby, Gitaxian Probe, and then
Well, you can.
yeah. Someone named Workshops does not think Lodestone Golem should be restricted. Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that Storm is kind of the mechanic is very frustrating to play against. The problem is that the Storm deck inherently revolves around all the cards that are already restricted.
Yeah. Well, never mind. 2 spheres.
Yeah, this is.
If Webb ever draws an Ancient Tomb, first of all, I've never seen a Storm deck play an Ancient Tomb post board, even though they all board in 3 or 4. If Webb ever draws Ancient Tomb, then he might be able to do something here.
Right, and that's the thing. That I was saying this last week, like the cards that could get you out of this are like Ancient Tomb or Engineered Explosives. Like Engineered Explosives would be insane here.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny.
But no one does that. But it would be totally devastating.
I mean, Webb's just going to win this game if Rich doesn't draw something, Webb's going to win next turn. Or, like, not next turn. Rich has this draw step plus 1 more. Because Webb goes end of turn, vamp for Hercules here. Trinisphere just doesn't do anything. And then plays his 5th land and says go. Rich has to draw a Wasteland or a Sphere effect. And then if he doesn't, Webb goes Hercules, you untap, win the game because he drew a Dark Petition. So Webb's a huge favorite right here.
Yeah, this is a perfect mana-heavy draw. No Wastelands.
Webb's best draw might be Ancient Tomb. Oh, I guess he's drawing Hercules. So his best draw will be Hercules. His best draw other than that would have been Ancient Tomb. Because now if Rich doesn't draw a Wasteland, then he drew Strip Mine, obviously. So Webb just kind of has to let that happen, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and casting Dark Ritual doesn't accomplish anything. In fact, it de-accomplishes something.
Yeah. I was trying to come up with some weird way where Dark Ritual helped, but I could not find one.
All right, so Webb needs to draw. Now Webb's in trouble, though. I mean, he's not in a ton of trouble because Rich is only attacking for 3 this turn, then 4, then 4. Or I guess 3's 3 a turn right now. He doesn't even have another land. So Webb has a little time, but any sphere or strip effect that Rich draws is really brutal. Webb just needs to draw a land. He needs to draw not a Mox, not a ritual, just a land.
Now we're back to Ancient Tomb being the best draw.
Actually, Black Lotus is not terrible because it's like it's way worse than drawing a land, but Webb can just cast Black Lotus here.
Yep.
So now the ball's kind of back in Rich's court. And actually, Black Lotus is good because it means even if Webb is not playing Lotus, he's playing Ponder.
This seems worse.
Yeah,
Right?
one of the reasons. So one of the reasons I like Lotus is that it means that if Rich draws a Wasteland, you still get to
Yeah.
cast Hercules. The reason not to like it, even though it looks like Webb is actually casting Lotus, is Rich is just going to draw a Phyrexian Revoker. I like playing Lotus here though. I think it plays because it
So
plays
let's
around
think- It plays around a sphere, and the land doesn't, right?
it plays around Sphere or Wasteland or Metamorph, and
So I think
land
you have
is
to play
not.
Lotus. It's just more cards.
Yeah.
The only card that punishes you for Lotus, he doesn't have any null routes.
Well, the other
Probably.
thing is, Webb wins the game next turn now because now he goes.
Tangle.
Oh, well, Tanglear is really good.
Wait, can he?
Wow. Because otherwise Webb would have been able to cast the Hercules and then win the game on the spot. But
Yeah, is there a way to Hercules?
you can't
No,
Hercules
it's
now
not.
because if you don't draw a land, you lose. So I think Webb just taps down a bunch of cards. I mean, I guess you leave Lotus up, but it doesn't matter that much. And then hopes to just draw a land. Lotus Petal not going to do it. So Webb's still going to win this turn if Rich doesn't draw again. By the way, because he taps down 3 permanents, leaves a land. Oh no, he's still not enough. Yeah, never mind. Webb is still now. He's actually a little far away.
Yeah.
No, Webb needs to draw a land. Is what happens in order to get out of this.
Yep. Because then he'll have.
Well,
Wait, Hercules costs 5, right?
Hercules costs 5. Yeah, he needs to hit a land because Rich. So I think Webb just has to Hercules on upkeep. Oh wait, no, never mind. He drew the Lotus Petal. He actually wins because upkeep he just Hercules and then he untaps and then just goes Lotus Petal, Ritual, Dark Petition. Okay, so Webb did in fact win. This is a weird game.
This is a weird game where I kept.
Yeah, it didn't have to be a land. It just actually Lotus Petal does the trick.
Right. This is a very weird game.
Yeah, and then Ritual, Petition, Yawgmoth's Will, Replay Lotus, Ritual, Tendrils.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Webb beat turn 1 Trinisphere Leyline against Ephro and beat turn 1 Sphere, turn 2 Sphere against Rich, so Webb is kind of crushing this league.
Yeah, I gotta figure out how to do this.
No, it's fine. You don't need to. Look, if Storm goes 2-1 today, I'll call it a victory for Storm.
Yeah.
Rich almost got there. I mean, he was drawing Strip Mine the turn he needed, then Tangor the turn he was very good, but Webb drew the Lotus Petal the turn he needed it, and drew Black Lotus, actually. That was also a very good draw, as it turns out.
Did he actually need the Lotus? He did, right?
It could have been a land. I think land would have worked.
No, but would he be able to have done this whole chain without Lotus?
Yeah, assuming Lotus Petal. I guess if he didn't draw Lotus or Lotus Petal and his lands were not fetch lands, then yes. But otherwise, I think he would have been at least had a decent chance.
Right. The only land in his yard is an island, so he wouldn't
Yeah,
have black. But
Webb maxing Storm count here. Oh no, I guess he's just not sacking his Lotus. Either way, he's tendrils for a lot. Oh, he's got to worry about Mindbreak Trap, I guess. Actually, Rich just has. Also, he can't worry about Mindbreak Trap. Rich would have just cast Mindbreak Trap on the Dark Petition.
wait, he couldn't. Oh, on the Dark Petition, right?
Because Webb went Ritual.
Right. Yeah, he's really running up the score.
He's
All
really
that, and he
ass.
doesn't cast Cabal Therapy?
Yeah. All right, well, here we go. 14 drills, I guess 15 drills of agony later, and Webb is, in fact, the winner. Well, these have been some crazy matches, and they've all ended with a giant tendrils on the stack.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah, you don't draw a fast clock, and they draw Hercules Recall, and that can be it. The mana heavy plus Hercules Recall hand. It's not very clever, but
As Ifro says, the Panthers went for 2 and up by 40, and Webb did also. So, all right. Well, Webb advances to 5-1, so he is the league leader by a win. Rich Shay goes to 4-2. I guess Ifro and myself have a potential to hit 4-2 today, but no one else can get up to even 4 wins. So that's where kind of the top of the standings fall. Kai has emerged from the bottom. He's now 2-3, which is not necessarily the worst record. He's going to be tied with some number of people, but it's kind of interesting. Or 2-4 rather. It's kind of interesting how much these records are close together. I don't recall a season where the records were quite this close together. I guess Webb's pulling ahead at this point, but there's a lot of people in the middle, like 8 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah, usually we've had one. I feel like the big difference is we've usually had one person who had only 0 or 1 win for a long time. So Kai has prevented that from happening now. So
he's changed his usual strategy. I like all the Kai beats too, because I know he's going to listen to this later and then angrily message me. No. But that'll do it for round 2. Round 3, we've got us. I'm playing Chris next round in the same matchup with hopefully not the same result, but we'll see. I guess Shops did win the die roll and still lose the match, so maybe that's a bad sign.
Sure. That gives us hope for vintage, though, right?
Something like that. We'll be back in a couple minutes with round 3 of the Vintage Super League.